There are a good few games I've wanted to talk about for a good while now, and this is one of them. Kirby Fighters 2 might just be one of my top 10 games of all time. I mean, how could it not be? It's basically just Smash Bros, but purely Kirby. And you all know how much I love Kirby. Fun fact, this is probably the only Kirby game I actually like. I've played quite a lot of the mainline games, but none of them really stuck out to me as being enjoyable. I mean, don't get me wrong, playing these games multiplayer is a lot of fun, especially some of the boss rush modes, but playing these games by yourself is just really sad. So naturally, I'm drawn a lot more to multiplayer games over single player games, and I think that's probably the main reason why I'm a huge fan of Kirby Fighters 2. Playing this game with my Discord friends was probably some of the most fun I've ever had in terms of playing video games. Trying to get the highest points tally in story mode, my teammates cheering me on in a Discord VC, and having just nice conversations in between rounds solidified this game as one of my favourites. I even have a separate channel where I would just post Kirby Fighters 2 videos. The videos were all usually pretty samey, just normal Kirby Fighters 2 gameplay, but, you know, with a couple explosions chucked into the mix. But now's not the time to ramble on about my dead channel, now's the time to ramble on about the actual game. Booting it up, there are a ton of options for people who want to play this game by themselves. There's the quick battles, where you easily wallop CPUs, there's the quote-unquote story mode, which isn't really a story, but it's just making your way up a tall tower, taking on and obviously walloping more CPUs along your way. There's single-handed mode, a series of 10 battles against CPUs, with each round increasing the difficulty. And last but not least, there's the online mode, which for a game that was shadow dropped on the eShop, is about as active as you would imagine. Oh, and there's also the training mode, which is honestly the closest resemblance to how it feels playing online on this game. We'll talk about each mode in a bit more depth later, but for now let's start with the quick matches. Entering a battle, you're greeted with the character selection screen, where almost every character on the roster is one of Kirby's copy abilities. Honestly, this is where the game kinda reminded me of Smash Melee. Every character is easy to pick up and learn, but the skill ceiling is surprisingly high. The other portion of the roster is built up of dream friends, such as Magolor, Gooey, and Bandana Waddle-Dee. These characters are a little bit trickier to fully learn, but when you do, you're a powerhouse. After selecting your character, you then have to choose a stage, with each stage being good for certain characters. For example, if you're playing as Wrestler, you usually want to get closer to your opponent so you can pull off your command grabs a lot easier. So for this, you'd obviously want to choose a smaller stage, such as Butter Buildings or Springy Handland. While for a ranged character, like Archer or Bomb, you'd want to try and get on one of the larger stages, such as Fountain of Dreams or Bubbly Clouds. And once all is said and done, you can now scrap your opponent. The battles really aren't anything to write home about. I mean, it's just two people duking it out when they could literally be doing anything else, like getting fresh air, reading a book, or exploring the infinite void of space, but whatever. Naturally, you always win these fights, cause, you know, your opponent's a brain-dead CPU, and you know the old saying, if your opponent's not a CPU, you're probably not playing Kirby Fighters 2. But what if they're not a CPU, I hear you asking? What if the person you're fighting in this game is a full-blown human, you know, with goals and aspirations? Well, my loyal Spooner, chances are, if they had goals and aspirations, they'd probably be working towards those rather than playing Kirby Fighters 2. One would assume. But let's just say they're a human. The person you're going head-to-head with is another living person. Well, at that point, it's kind of a 50-50. Either your opponent's poured hundreds upon hundreds of hours into the game, and you'll get absolutely shredded, or your opponent's just downloaded the demo for the crack. The story mode is just a big batch of battles. The amount of battles drastically changes depending on which tower you choose, varying from a measly 5 floors all the way to a girthy 50. In between floors, you're confronted with a choice. This choice consists of food, which you will only pick if you suck. There's the skill tree charm things, which basically boost a certain stat depending on which one it is. Like this one strengthens your strength, this one improves your health, and this one improves your ghost. But whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. And you can also choose these charm things, which unless you're getting really unlucky, you also don't take. There are a few more items thrown in here and there, but by now you kinda get the idea. They're all just there to boost your experience, and make the story mode just that little more interesting. Single-handed mode is usually the game mode I spend the most amount of time playing. Picking a copy ability and then blazing through a series of 10 battles feels super satisfying to me, and the battles gradually becoming more and more difficult is a really nice touch. And that pretty much wraps up Kirby Fighters 2. A very enjoyable game, and although it doesn't have a lot of content to warrant a £20 price tag, you can still get a lot out of this. I guess. Anyway, that about covers everything. If I missed anything, please don't be sure to let me know, and I heard that if you subscribe, you'll, Alright, I'm not gonna lie to you, nothing will happen. Okay, bye.